Welcome back, everybody, to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BetSperts. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and no, Andy is not hungover from his birthday. He's actually talking about the Masters right now. We've crossed the streams, Matt, which we know is dangerous. So no Andy today. We have Matt in, which means we'll get a little bit of hockey, and I hear there's some baseball going on. But how's everything going with you, Matt?
I'm doing well. I wanted to wear my Masters hat because, Andy's talking about the Masters. It's Masters week. Any chance I have a chance to wear my Masters gear, I like doing it. So I wanted to do that, but I'm doing well. Did you have anything on the national championship game last night?
I did not, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't watch too much of it. I turned on the beginning, and I will go back. Looks like there's a couple replays on this afternoon. I'll go back and watch it
Mhm.
because it looks like the end of the game was pretty interesting. But you know what? I did take Andy's UNC plus 4.5 for a little bit. Turns out that worked out well. Apparently, there was that. It's one of the fun things about basketball when you have that underdog and. Maybe you want UNC to win the game, but you were pretty happy with a plus 4.5 ticket in your pocket when that three missed.
Yeah, I was on Carolina, or excuse me, Kansas from the beginning of the tournament. I had a Kansas to win plus 1400 future at the beginning of it. So happy that hit, but I'm also a North Carolina fan. And that was a little bit like I hedged a little bit, but that was, well, do I want a big bonus in my FanDuel account or do I want my heart to be happy? So that was tough down the stretch, but at least with my team going down, I made myself some nice coin there, plus 1400.
No, there was a lot of people, and I'm sure that there will be a lot of discussions this morning about who was smart enough to hedge their UNC future and who wasn't smart enough to hedge their UNC future. So, hopefully you went out there and you locked in some value. Again, I try not to hedge too much, but you got it that far. So hopefully you locked it a little bit, maybe even sold it on prop swap. It was a pretty fun end to, I think otherwise, was it maybe the best tournament? What do you think?
That was It's weird because there were no buzzer beaters, but I thought like the Elite Eight was a little bit of blowout city, but like the Sweet 16 and the Final Four, I thought were really really good. Obviously, Kansas blew out Villanova, but Duke Carolina was as good as you could have wanted, and yet a national championship game that came down to a 3 pointer to tie the game as time as time expired. So while it didn't hit the buzzer beater, was still an incredibly exciting game. And producer Dan makes a great point. Plus 4.5 almost died an incredibly painful death for UNC there. And I don't know if you saw the end, but UNC got a last second shot attempt because Kansas was inbounding at like half court and trying to break the press. The guy who took the inbound for Kansas stepped out of bounds after one step, giving UNC the ball back at a 3 point game. So instead of a foul and two free throws, it was UNC with the ball back with down three. So that plus 4.5 looked really bad for a couple seconds and then really good.
God
Talk
bless
about
Bill
a
Self.
it was bad bet if you had Kansas, and it was or bad beat if you had Kansas covering the points, but a great cover if you had Carolina, given where they were at halftime.
God bless Bill Self. Now, where are we in the hockey season? How much more hockey do we have left? Because I mentioned this yesterday. I'm a little weirded out at this point. Usually the hockey playoffs are
hmm
going on, but we've had some breaks and stuff. How much we got left?
We got about a month left in the season. I think end of April, right around beginning of May, is when this all wraps up. So we're winding down. Got a couple picks tonight. I've been thanks to the Ontario launch. Ontario is now live. I've been doing a little bit more Maple Leafs research, and I think I've stumbled upon a trend. I had this yesterday when the Leafs played the Lightning in Tampa. Second period overs for the Leafs are a thing. Yesterday, the over 2.5 was plus 140. I think they've combined for 4 goals. The Leafs have gone over over that 2.5 mark in second periods for the last five consecutive games, and then four of those five, excuse me, have gone four or more. So second period overs in Leafs games at plus money you should be taking. Panthers have also gone over that 2.5 mark in their second or four of their last five second periods. So you like plus money overs. There's a plus money over condensed into one period for you. I know I love giving plus monies, love giving overs. And that's also to make up for the minus money under I have coming up, but we'll get to that. I'm going to go with the Wild minus 1.5 against the Predators, plus 220. Wild played last night. They're playing a fresher Predators team, but the Wild have been so incredibly good since the trade deadline, since they picked up Marc-Andre Fleury. He's going in net tonight. Cam Talbot played for them last night. Fleury has stopped 92 of 96 shots in his 3 games so far with the Wild. His save percentage is 958, which is just amazing. The Wild, since that deal, are 7-0-1, and I believe they've allowed only 13 goals as a team in that 8-game stretch. Nashville is a very okay team. They're kind of up and down. They are at home tonight, which is why you see the plus 220 there for the -1.5. But with how Minnesota's playing, especially with how they're playing in net, I think this is a game that is conducive to them covering a style of game that they can cover that -1.5. Having played last night, because I think they're going to try and slow the game down, and Nashville likes playing a slower defensively styled game. So if Minnesota can kind of play that pace with them, I like their advantage in net. And I think that's at plus 220. That's some good value. I will probably also just sprinkle the wild money line there. I think it's like -120 or so. I think that's a little bit safer of a bet, obviously, but at plus 220, it's what I do when I come on this show. I give out I give out plus money puck lines, and that one was too good to pass up on. And then the under 6.5 for just what I mentioned. The Predators are a defensive minded team. They have a really good defensive core. They like playing a little bit of a slower game. Minnesota has been fantastic defensively. Like I said, just 13 goals allowed in the last 8 games. I think they've only allowed more than two, like one time in that stretch. I think they've allowed one goal or less, like 5 or 6 of them. So I like the Wild. I like their goalie with how Marc-Andre Fleury's been playing. And I think 6.5 goals for these two teams, especially given the Wild playing last night and probably wanting to play a slower game, more defensive-minded game as well with Nashville. I think 6.5 is a lot of goals in this one. So I'm going to go with the under there.
All right, maybe I'll go and find an under 6, see if I can get plus money on something like
I
that. But
I like
all
that.
these
Alt unders. We don't usually go with. We're usually in on alt overs on this show, but you're probably the more smart-minded better than Andy. You're doing the educated thing and going and taking the alt under. I wouldn't mind that play at all. I think tonight's going to be like a 3-1 type game.
I never mind selling to the push. So, this is a spot where 6.5, if it's on 6, you win. If it's 6, you push. All right, I'll take
Yeah,
the risk on the push for maybe a little better payout if it ends up being 5. So
I
either
love
way,
that.
I like all
I
these
love that
looks.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. All
What do
right,
we
the
got in the NBA?
NHL season. Yeah, it's now this is we're almost done here. It ends on Sunday.
I know.
There's no basketball yesterday. So there's no
I'm like
basketball
you. I'm
yesterday. You
getting
know
all
what that
thrown
means?
off because I'm so used to the NHL being over like 2 or 3 weeks before the NBA, and now I'm like, wait, this isn't when the NBA is supposed to end. They're supposed to have a month left. It's like, oh, there's 3 games left.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close to the end. Again, a bunch of stuff up in play. And as is tradition when we have a huge slate, nobody played yesterday. So we got 12 games today, just 2 picks for me. But be careful, everybody. We're getting later in the season. There's a lot of good reasons not to bet on games. For example, the Trailblazers are playing the Thunder tonight. Neither team has really even half the roster they had a month ago and has no interest in winning. So if you want to see a disaster, about 10 o'clock at night, maybe 9, closer to 9:45. The fourth quarter of that should be pretty much a mess. The Bulls Bucks game will be a lot of fun. That number looked just about right to me. The Hornets Heat game I think might be a little bit underrated. Don't mind the Heat there, but just not enough value. Two numbers did stick out to me, however. Teams that again that are still playing. Still motivated here. We've got the Hawks and the Raptors over 226. I know producer Dan loves this. The Hawks don't really play much defense when John Collins isn't around, and he is still out. These totals have been north of 235, honestly, for the last couple weeks. And although Raptors totals have fallen a little bit, the offense is kind of stagnated here. They will be at home, a little more comfortable for them. And again, the Hawks just turn these games into a little faster pace and don't mind giving up points here. I have this closer to 230, almost 231 myself. So over 226, over 227 looks nice to me. And then similar thought here, Grizzlies Jazz, again, for whatever reason, and maybe it's just because Jazz totals have been a little bit suppressed, but when the Jazz are at home, they don't mind playing a little bit of a faster pace, try to take advantage of their altitude, if you will. And the Grizzlies continue to have a young roster that's still healthy at the end of the year here. They continue to push pace. Even without John Morant, they're scoring a ton of points. This is another game. I have this closer to 229, honestly, almost 230. I had to whittle it down a little bit. So over 224, 225, honestly, even if it gets to 226, I still don't mind it there at that number. Just two really nice spots here where I think we're just going to see a lot of teams up and down the floor, fresh off a little bit of a break here. So 2 overs for us tonight in the association.
I know you don't have it on your board, but since I'm on the show and the Bulls are playing a bigger game against the Bucks tonight, I know they're probably going to lose because that's what they do against good teams. But they're 5.5 point underdogs. I think I saw last right around that 5.5, 6 mark. I mean, my heart wants to take the Bulls, but my head says take the Bucks to cover that 5.5, right?
Yeah, I had it closer to Bucks like 6.5, almost
Okay.
7. It's tough, with Giannis not being 100%, kind of how to adjust that. And the Bulls have been good at closing some of these close numbers at home, but it's just kind of the mess to the end of the season here. So I think the Bucks are a little more locked in and probably win this one comfortably.
Yeah, I think so too. They got Caruso back, and the defense got a little bit better, but man, they just not as much on the offensive end, but on the defensive end, I think they just miss Lonzo Ball a whole lot. They haven't really been able to recover from missing that. Io DeSumo's been a really nice story. He's had a really nice year, but like he's a very good backup point guard. He's not your starting point guard on a playoff team that's going to win a bunch of games, and that's just unfortunately doesn't seem like they're going to get Lonzo back. It seems like they'll probably shut him down for the year, which is not ideal, but is what it is.
It's, a good start, maybe not a bad finish for the Bulls, but we move on. There's something happening today, and I know this excites you a lot more than it excites me. Baseball. There's baseball today, like real baseball, like counts and stuff. Like this is it. This is game one, season starting, ready to go.
No baseball. So opening day is Thursday.
Oh,
Today
it's
we're wrapping up
Thursday.
this.
My
So
bad.
they've
My bad.
most teams have left their spring training facilities, and now they're playing in exhibitions at their stadiums. So they're all home. But I figured Andy is not the biggest baseball bettor. That's usually my role on this show, and I don't think I was going to be on opening day or any time for the rest of the week. Figured this was a good time. It was between giving you an
Getting ahead of the
opening day
curve
bet
there.
or some Masters stuff, and I figured I'm going to leave the golf to Andy. He's the expert there. I'm going to talk something more in my wheelhouse, and I put together a little opening day parlay. You got to do some searching for the odds if you want to find them. That they're not up everywhere yet. I found these on Caesars, I believe. I'm sure FanDuel and BetMGM and DraftKings and all them will be soon to follow. But I wanted to go with a kind of a heavy favorites parlay here, and I added the Padres one late because without that, the parlay was only like plus 230, and I thought let's try and throw one more and get greedy and up to plus 490. But I'm going to go with producer Dan's Braves, defending world champions at home. Uh, Ceremony, all that. They got their ace Max Fried on the mound versus Cincinnati Reds team that just, I mean, they pretty much sold everybody, and that they're kind of in a rebuilding type phase. They got rid of a lot of their core players to save some cash. Nick Castellanos is gone. Eugenio Suarez is not there anymore. So I like the Braves here at home, celebrating the World Series with their ace on the bump. I'm not sure how much they're going to win by, but I like them to get the job done there. Brewers, Cubs. I have the Brewers money line. Corbin Burns was unbelievable last year. Kyle Hendricks is a good pitcher for the Cubs. He usually is a better pitcher at home, but I like Corbin Burns against a pretty weak Cubs lineup this year. Also, it was not up yet, but whenever they throw up the under for that, I would take it. It's in Chicago in early April. It is going to be no more than 50, 45 degrees. It'll probably be cloudy. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some wind and rain in Wrigley because the wind is always seeming to swirl in Wrigley. So once you see an under on that, I would not be afraid to hop on it because I think Corbin Burns and Kyle Hendricks are both going to throw well. You have two not great lineups for as good as the team as the Brewers are. They're really more of a pitching and defense type team that every once in a while erupts offensively, but their lineup is not it's not an elite lineup by any means. It's a fine one, but nothing great. Cardinals money line in Pittsburgh. That is, I love the Cardinals this year. I think they're going to be right there with the Brewers in the NL Central. Pirates are another team that they didn't really have much to sell, but they sold or got rid of most of what they had. The Cardinals seemingly for the 20th straight opening day have Adam Wainwright on the bump. I was telling Dan before the show, I can't believe it's 2022 and Adam Wainwright is their opening day starter, but here we are. So I like the Cardinals there against just a bad Pittsburgh Pirates team who they had a couple elite level prospects that they're going to keep down for the 12 days or whatever, so they don't have to burn the year of service. Give me St. Louis in that matchup. And then Padres Diamondbacks, again, sensing a similar theme here. World Series type contender against top 5 draft pick type contender in the Diamondbacks. Yu Darvish is going to go for the Padres against Madison Bumgarner for Arizona. Bumgarner obviously used to be very good, but he's not quite what he used to be. Darvish had a very nice year for the Padres last year. That's a team with World Series expectations that just went out and added a pitcher in Sean Manaea that kind of gives them the vote of confidence from ownership to can bolster their roster, their rotation right ahead of opening day. So I like them there. And that pays out plus 490. I love those odds. I'm going to bet this exact parlay myself probably as soon as those odds are available on FanDuel. Dan and I were talking as much as we like the parlay. Weird things happen in baseball and not an opening day. So it's by no means a guarantee, but those heavy favorites, I'm a big fan of plus 490. That's usually my strategy in betting baseball. It's similar to hockey. Money lines aren't nearly as valuable, but if you can find a good run line or like a heavy favorite parlay, that's really where most of the value lies. And there's a good chance, especially early on in the season before the books kind of catch up to the teams, to find some value.
I like what we're doing this early a little bit too. I'm curious to see how those numbers move a little bit.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll have a little parlay CLV. I think what we're hoping is all that nonsense. Let's keep that nonsense on the clay. Let's keep that nonsense tennis wise
I
because
love what
I
I'm
talked
looking at this
about most of
graphic here.
these
There's a lot of
yesterday.
plus numbers. There's a lot
Oh,
of
you're
plus
gonna like it.
numbers. I'm intrigued. I love it. What do you got?
It's a lot of what we talked about yesterday, as I mentioned. No bets for me yesterday. A lot of stuff coming today. So double check and make sure you might already have these numbers. Haven't moved too much, just a touch in our favor, a couple of them. But we'll start in Charleston, where again, the theme of this week, both tournaments have kind of extenuating circumstances. Charleston has this green clay, which isn't the same as the slower, kind of thicker red clay you're used to seeing at the French Open, and most of the clay tournaments we have now. It's kind of halfway between clay and hard court, but it ends up being kind of a funky surface for some players. And it's the week before the clay season starting in Europe. There's Billie Jean King next week, and then all the big tournaments start there. So as you look at this event and then Bogota, we'll talk about the altitude there in just a second. But both of these tournaments are kind of right for some of these bigger names coming in and maybe not giving their best effort. So starting with Emma Navarro, the U.S. wild card, someone who's really nice, and I don't mind backing at bigger numbers here. She goes up against Madison Brengle. This one getting underway shortly, so hopefully you grabbed this one yesterday. I think this is literally starting as I'm speaking. Brengle's had a great start to the season, but is playing just kind of way over where she has been. I think the market continues to kind of overrate her, which again that can happen after kind of a player goes on a tear, if you will. Katie McNally goes up against Allison Risk again. Similar thing. Risk has had a really nice start to the season, playing well above where we've seen her. Not the last year and a half, especially at this particular time of year. McNally is someone that is really going to fight and make this into a match. Risk is someone that's generally capable of losing sets. For example, this will be one I'll try to keep an eye on live. If Risk goes up early, I'm going to be looking to live bet McNally to win sets like 7-5, 7-6, things like that. So love the money lines here and the plus games. And then Bogota, kind of the funny thing here is the altitude. It's really tough to play. There are a few events on the tour in general that are played at altitude, and this is, I believe, one of the higher spots. So it can be tough. A lot of it comes down to fitness, and I'm happy to fade Diana Yastremska against a woman in Udvardy who's done well here before. In general, a better player on clay. So three big underdogs for us. All of these this afternoon. Again, Navarro underway just about now, but you've got a couple hours to get the McNally bet in and the Udvardy bet in if you didn't already yesterday.
I love it. I similar to what you say with me with hockey bets. When I see those plus money tennis bets, I'm a huge fan. I love hopping on those with you. They're just more fun to root for.
There's just certain weeks where again, you start to look at the schedule, figuring out what everybody really wants to do. And not that, they might not necessarily give their most honest effort. I think this is all a lot of situations where if these players, maybe drop the first set or maybe get a little more of a match than they were expecting, things I think turn a little more quickly as they look forward to moving on. So that'll be the angle this week. We'll see how it works out. So far, so good. Yesterday was a bit of an underdog day. But anything else for the people here?
I do want to mention you brought up prop swap earlier, and I think I mentioned this ticket I was sitting on last week. But half of my Kansas to win the title Justin Thomas parlay is hit. So now, thanks to that ticket I bought on prop swap, I'm essentially sitting on 55 to 1 odds for Justin Thomas to win the Masters. It was a $20 ticket to pay out like $1,200, and now it is one's hit. So I have a $20 to win 1,200 on Justin Thomas to win the Masters. Let's go, JT.
I can dig it. I like that quite a bit. Yes, check out PropSwap. Again, another really good way to go in if you missed out on some of these Masters lines a little bit early. There's a lot of stuff like that out there. I bet there are probably some other national championship parlay tickets.
Yeah,
Again, maybe Matt will put his out there if he asks nicely enough. But
maybe I
check
will.
them
Who
out.
knows?
Make sure you use
Promo
the
code
BetSperts
BetSperts, they
code.
give you free $100. That's why
Yes.
I use $20 of my free $100 credits, and then it's free money for me on this now. I'm sitting on a free bet of 55 to 1 on Justin Thomas. He's I think the second favorite right now to win the Masters, so I'll take that.
Beautiful. Give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And if you need something to do, hop on over to the golf feed. I bet they're still going. See you tomorrow.